everybody, and welcome on out to another edition of the Living Deadwax podcast here on the Living Deadwax YouTube channel. We talk about music on this channel. If you like music and vinyl, stick around, hit the subscribe button, like the video, comment down below, all that fun stuff. We appreciate you. Tonight, we got a fun one. It was my choice. And tonight we are bringing you another ranking. We've been doing these rankings like once a month. I feel like that's pretty good. I feel like that's a good ratio. And tonight we are ranking the Soundgarden discography. So yeah, I know Tyler had to dive in, do some first time listening. Yeah,
I did. I had 7 hours today. Which we'll get into later on, my opinions on things. I'm going to get controversial tonight, and I'm pretty convinced that your brother is going to get upset with me. So that's what we're doing here. So there we go.
Yeah. I feel like your listening experience is going to be skewed because I feel like if you binge shit, I think you have a more negative opinion of stuff.
Oh, I mean, that's okay. That might be, I can see you saying that. I can see that being a thing. I wasn't like angry, like going, oh God, it wasn't like a slog necessarily. Mm-hmm. And I think that some of my thoughts would happen regardless, but that I will factor that in a little bit. Maybe if I just kind of come back to things, it's at a different point, maybe it might be different, but at this point in time, my opinions are my opinions.
Okay. I'm just going to let you know, I'm not really mad. I'm just disappointed. I'll just put it that way.
Sick. There we go.
But yeah, Tyler alluded to it. We brought in another guest tonight, a guy who's been on the show 2 times before for album ranking. So this is kind of his specialty. Like you do an album ranking, you bring in the ringer, you bring in Josh, you bring in the Kurt Bavacqua of the Living Deadwax podcast, and then it's my brother Josh. And we did Alice in Chains, and then Soundgarden came up, and Josh is a perfect fit for that too. Side note, Eddie Trunk had Michael Anthony on their show tonight. But we got Josh. So
same.
Some people would say it's better. Depends on your opinion of the man. But anyways, let's bring in Josh. Josh, how you doing tonight, my brother?
What up, guys? I'm doing good. How are you doing? Thanks for that nice intro.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. You and
the ringer.
Michael Anthony. You and Michael Anthony, same level. Bass player extraordinaire.
That's true. I don't think I want to be the Michael Anthony of the family, though, right? Because he's the guy you disregard. Doesn't matter. You paint him out of pictures and stuff too. I hope that's not Josh, right?
Millionaire though. He's a millionaire. So
yeah, he made $1 million.
Worked out for him. Yeah, tonight's going to be fun. Like I said, we're doing a Soundgarden album ranking. If you guys like this stuff, stick around with us. We're building a little community here. I do have an Instagram page for the channel at living_deadwax. Living Deadwax is already taken by somebody, so that was awkward. So yeah, check us out there.
You didn't want to do Living Deadwax 69?
No, I didn't want to do that. It's not 2001, so
420, 69, other numbers I don't know of at this point. 316.
I should bring back Triple H's God. I should bring that back as my Instagram handle.
Hey, what's up, asshole? Hey, this isn't Ty. This is Josh, his brother. I'll tell. Who is this? It's Tyler. Okay, I'll tell him you IM'd him. Thanks.
No, Josh, the really funny part about this is Tyler was going through his closets recently, and he still has some of the burned CDs I gave to him freshman year.
Wow.
I burned some of your CDs for him because he'd asked like, "Oh, I want this." I'm like, "Yeah, Josh has it. Josh got
100%.
CDs." And
yeah, because when I said it, I was like, because Ty said something along those lines of like, yeah, my brother has a billion CDs, right? I can burn anything you want. That's what he said to me. And I was like, so out of my asshole, I just said, all right, can I get like a Megadeth the greatest hits? And he's like, all right, yeah, done. And I was like, and he's like, want anything else? And I was like,
no problem.
I don't know, you got suicidal? And he was like, yeah, done. And because I really didn't think you were gonna have a suicidal tendencies greatest hits, but you did. And so just to give you a preview of that here, so just give you for Josh. There's the Megadeth greatest hits. That's
very nice.
This is your greatest hits, Josh. This is you. This is all you, brother.
Cool.
Yeah.
I
think that's Capital Punishment too. I don't think that's the one with the bomb on it.
I got Suicidal.
Yeah.
Well, hold on.
That's Prime Cuts. I don't know why I didn't put Prime Cuts on it.
That wasn't Capital Punishment because you want to know why? This one is Capital Punishment.
Oh, I wrote the whole thing out.
You did indeed, yeah. And
nice.
Also, idea here. I have the Angels and Airwaves. We don't need to whisper. Zach Herta burn CD. I kept these, by the way.
Nice.
I'm not throwing these out. And then I have Senses Fail from a Girl. Burn that for me.
That's a girl's handwriting.
That's a girl's handwriting, yeah. And then also on the low, I got Bowling for Soup, that CD, and I Love Your Hair. You are the best. I love you, XO. XO.
XO.
So there we go. But yeah, also
someday I'm gonna marry that girl.
100%. Also, real quick, I also have Ty's old CD book, and maybe your old CD book. I don't know what the timeline here is of things.
Oh, that was mine.
It's yours. Yeah, 100% yours. Yeah. This is getting full. I got a page left.
Are those grab bag CDs?
Oh yeah. These are all the minty. Okay. Oh yeah, absolutely. Listen. I don't know how we're gonna do it for a video on here, but this is like 30 pages of front and back, nothing but like straight like bops and slappers and real records here. So it's pretty good. All right.
Well, Zia had good grab bags for a while there. You would get good stuff in there. And
because they were trying to get rid of CDs for nothing.
Yeah, exactly. You'd spend, what was it, $5 to get 10 CDs or something, and they'd wrap them up in a mystery pack.
I actually think it was like $3 for CDs and $5 for DVDs.
Okay.
Wow.
It was,
and they
crazy.
did do vinyl as well, and it was never as good.
We did many vinyl videos of the vinyl, and the thing about it is we should have, like, just looking back now, I thought about that a few months back, and I was like, we should have just posted those anyway, because they're the most ridiculous things we got in there, because there was a lot of like weird R&B that like was not name brand, and there was also things in there that we got that we didn't know about that other people did, and they would comment and say, you don't know about XYZ thing, it's really good or something or other.
Some of them did get posted.
Yeah, some did. Yeah,
some did, but it was hit or miss. The CDs was where it was at for. Maybe that would be fun to bring it back, but they do them and they're not as good. Like we've tried them in the last few years, and they're
all Reader's Digest. It's all Reader's Digest. It's all garbage, and like you might get, I don't know, a Garth Brooks CD or something. I'm not sure. Like I'm trying to think about a level here, but you might get one name brand CD. Everything else is just complete garbage that no one wants. That's why it's in there.
It sucks too because they do the 99-cent bin, and you can find good stuff in there. Like just put it in put the 99-cent stuff in a mystery pack. Also, don't throw away the cases and then the album, because it would just be the discs. Do a mystery pack with the cases and stuff. Like, that would be really cool.
Yeah, but then you got like blocks, which they do for books. By the way, they do boxo books.
Yeah, I can't imagine what's in there, but
we've never bought a box of books. It was pretty solid back in the day, though. It'd be really cool if they brought it back, but I think the CDs are going to be in a band, or they are in demand on a certain level again.
Yeah,
so I don't think they really want to elude any profits there from those.
Yeah, probably not.
Yeah,
let's.
I don't think they're giving you any more money for trade-in, but I think they are wanting to charge the money.
Yeah, definitely. Let's get into tonight's topic. So we are going to be doing the album ranking for Soundgarden, just the studio albums. So the 6 studio albums from Ultra Mega OK all the way up to the reunion record King Animal. And we'll just go kind of a round table here, just like we did with Alice in Chains. We're going to go through in chronological order. At the end, kind of give your take about the album at the end, maybe some standout tracks that you liked, and then where you put it in your ranking 1 through 6. Before we get into the ranking, do a quick roundtable. How did you guys get into Soundgarden, or what was your first exposure, what have you? So we'll start with Josh. What was your kind of first exposure to Soundgarden? first album or?
Yeah, basically the same thing as Alice in Chains, just hanging out with Jimmy and Roger and Duran and everybody and friends from school. And
Gotcha.
I actually I remember this. I actually had a cool teacher in junior high that used to talk about music, and they she kind of talked about Soundgarden.
Woman.
Yeah.
Okay.
Nice.
Interesting.
Yeah,
what was actually bands for these bands?
First album was. Well, go ahead.
We're actually playing the game Oregon Trail, and
nice.
So me and my friend were like doing band names, and she's like, "Oh, don't forget Soundgarden."
Nice.
We gave all the characters like band names and stuff.
That's funny.
Yeah.
Don't forget Soundgarden. Hey Josh, what was the other band names you used?
Pantera and Metallica, if I remember right.
Nice. All right. Cool. All right.
Pantera has died of dysentery.
100%.
God damn it, Pantera.
God damn Pantera.
Josh, go ahead.
I'm sorry. Another good memory is playing Road Rash with Tim and Mark and hearing those Soundgarden songs on the soundtrack.
Definitely. That's what I was going to mention too. That's my first real exposure to the band. Your first record was a Super Unknown that you really remember?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, because that was 94. So you were
94. Yep.
You were happening there a little bit. You're 11 years old at the time, so just about to turn 11 because it was March 8th, 94. Mm-hmm. So okay, and then down on the upside, you're even more like you're almost a teenager at that point.
Exactly. Yeah.
Gotcha. Or you were probably 13. You were 13. So Down on the Upside came out. So
hold on, Josh, real quick. How did you know? Because at that point they broke up shortly thereafter. How did you find out they broke up? From MTV or what?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Okay. I didn't
Kurt Loder.
Because this is pre-internet, or internet existed, but pre like people having the internet widespread. So like it's just MTV, right? At that point.
Yeah, that's about it. Like radio and MTV.
Yeah. Yeah, people discount radio too. Like that was a thing back in the day. You'd get your news from that, which doesn't happen anymore. So
true. Josh, was that your first band breakup? Like with your favorite bands? Because I know Alice in Chains, they kind of sort of, but like not really at that point. But like, was that your first band breakup?
Yeah, I'd have to say so. Yeah.
Nice.
Okay.
Definitely.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Touchy.
Yeah. I remember being really disappointed because we never got a chance to see them, and then they kind of got back together with the King Animal stuff. They never just came to Arizona.
Yeah. Yeah, because Nirvana, Kurt killed himself. What was 94, right?
96.
Well,
no, 96
for 96 for Soundgarden. He sang, I think.
I was talking about Nirvana though, because you were talking about his first like band breakup. So. Yeah. Kurt killed himself in 94, right?
Yeah, right before he turned 11 or 10 or whatever it is. 11.
Yeah, so like Nirvana probably wasn't it. So yeah, Soundgarden probably. Yeah, you're probably right there.
April 4th, by the way, big downer there in the Brown house, maybe. Birthdays and whatnot.
I mean, Lane died the same day too. So,
all right, there we go. So sore memories here.
Definitely. So yeah, Tyler, how about you? What was your first exposure to Soundgarden growing up?
So it's kind of honestly the same with Alice in Chains. Like, I definitely probably by osmosis heard them on the radio. I'm sure that I heard Black Hole Sun a million times throughout my like little kid existence. I'm sure that was a thing. Not like consciously though. It wasn't until, again, same thing, there was a Loaded in 2000 and whatever it was, 2005 or whatever. Was there a greatest? I wonder if there was a thing. Was there a greatest hits that came out in like mid 2000s maybe? Or maybe it was just Audio Slave. They were doing that for Audio Slave hype. Possibly.
Yeah, I think A-Sides came out like early 2000s. Am I right, Josh?
Yeah.
Okay.
Could have been take that back. 100% take it back. 97 was A-Sides.
Oh.
Okay. Wow.
So it might have been an Audio Slave hype kind of deal.
That would make sense.
But I watched the Loaded, and that like consciously 2004, 2005, whatever. Consciously, the first time I ever saw the Black Hole Sun video.
Gotcha.
So like ever since then, it's just kind of been around, and obviously being hanging out with y'all, it's always been kind of around, and just knew the hits. Like I don't know anything deep. So again, same with Alice in Chains. I'm coming at this 90% first time caller or first time listener, first time caller here, 100%. So it wasn't a bad time. I'm stoked that I finally did it because I've been meaning to do it forever because I was just a hits guy. And I'm still kind of bummed out that I didn't. I don't know. I didn't look, but the Phantasm, right? The Phantasm compilation record that hung out forever.
Phantasm or whatever.
Yeah, that hung out forever, and neither of us bought it.
And, there's actually a track that they did for like a one-off track for the reunion on that before they officially got back together. That's pretty good. That thing is eBay. You can get one for 140 right now, so that's good.
We literally saw that same copy at Zia for like legitimately years. Like it was there forever, and we always picked it up, whatever. And then just neither of us bought it. And like I didn't really know what it was. I honestly thought it was like a live record or something at first. I didn't know it was just the greatest hits, kind of thing. And that's if I would have known that, I guess I probably would have bought it because it was only like maybe $30, maybe $30 at the time. I know it's weird
it's a 3 LP. So it's a 3 LP. So it probably wasn't 30. It's probably like $50, but maybe 45, something like that. I mean, you could get them on Discogs right now for like $80. So not too bad. I might buy it. So it's a really good comp, actually. Looking through the track, there's a lot of tracks, and you got some cool live cuts too. You got Pretty Noose live on SNL. That's pretty cool.
Yeah,
so nuts.
Yeah, so there's
you never see SNL tracks on stuff ever because they keep that stuff locked up.
Makes sense. Yeah. So yeah, I'm kind of similar-ish to Josh. Like Road Rash was obviously a big exposure. Shout out to Road Rash. Colin and I were just playing like Road Rash 2 or 3 like a couple weeks ago. Does not hold up. The Genesis ones do not hold up. Road Rash 3D is still very good though. Road Rash 3D is still very fun. I remember when Josh finally beat it, and the last track is like, it's like 20 minutes. Like you're in the race for like 20 minutes. And Road Rash is the type of game where if you wreck at the end, like you're just getting passed by everybody. So you could literally waste like 19 minutes on this race, wreck at the end, and just lose, and then have to redo it all over again. So I remember when Josh finally beat Road Rash 3D. Also the Black Hole Sun video, like I remember watching that video in like 95, 96.
Oh yeah.
And I have memories of watching that video with mom and dad, like on like VH1 and stuff.
Right.
And like doing air guitar and stuff to that. Shout out to our parents, because our parents, like, dad would make fun of stuff sometimes, like Puddle of Crud, stuff like that. But he would buy stuff for us and like expose us to stuff, like even if he wasn't into it. Same with mom. Like there's no reason that mom and dad need to be watching Black Hole Sun. Like,
very true.
You know what I'm saying? It's like, it's almost like if your kid came up and like, oh, I want to watch this Imagine Dragons video or something. Not the same quality, but you know what I mean. But it's like you're like, yeah, okay. So shout out to mom and dad, because definitely exposed. Let us branch out and have that exposure to things. So yeah, I have that memory. That video is obviously iconic. They're really good video band, really good MTV band. They really got it. I think they understood how to appeal to that generation of music fans. So yeah, let's get into it. So Soundgarden, they formed, what was it, like 1984? So a good while before they even dropped their first album. Chris Cornell and Kim Thale, original members, Hiro Yamamoto on bass, Kim Thale on guitar, obviously. And then they had a drummer before Matt Cameron, but for all intents and purposes, like Matt Cameron is the drummer. He's on every album. Yeah. And I want to talk and get your guys' take on this a little bit, because I was thinking about this. Ultra Mega OK came out 88. Okay. So we'll talk about this on the next record, actually. I'm not going to spoil it yet. But Ultra Mega OK came out. They did 2 EPs on Sub Pop. And they did those on Sub Pop, and then they got signed to SST. And they dropped Ultra Mega OK October 31st, so Halloween 1988. Josh has the remix. That came out like 2017. which we will talk about.
Sounds really good.
Yes, yeah, that's the one that's only on streaming because I don't own it, so I had to stream it. Okay. And I don't think you can even find the original. I know the band was not happy with the mix for the original. They started doing Jack and Dino ended up doing that remix with Kim, and they started doing that in like the 90s, like the early 90s. But the band didn't want to spend the money and go through the whole process, and they finished. Kim and Jack finished it in 2017. So that's when that remix actually dropped. And I have heard the original, and I think the remix is definitely better. So, so yeah, let's get right into it though. So they dropped that in 1988. So let's go Tyler, Josh, and then me. We'll mix it up here. So Tyler, Ultra Mega OK. You listened to it today. Give us your takes and your ranking.
All right. So for me, so like I said, first time I ever listened to this, I had no preconceived notions. I had no idea what I was going to do here. So initial, I re-listened to it again right before we came back on, or came back on, before we came on. So it was ranked differently at the end here. I'll get to it. But so I did flip it. I put it up in the order here, actually, to be honest with you. So initial impressions here. I thought Flower is the opening single, is the only single off it, I believe, and that's the opening track. Flower is a cool song. I think that Beyond the Wheel is a really cool song.
Okay.
It's right. It's sandwiched between 665 and 667, which is their bullshit songs. That was also a thing I didn't like, is there's bullshit on this record. That I think, and I feel this way too, like one of my favorite bands of all time is Blink-182, who infamously have a lot of bullshit songs. And that's a gimmick of theirs. If I heard these songs, if I heard those records today, even with the iconic gimmick songs, I would be upset and be like, I don't want these on the record. I don't care about this shit. So maybe in the moment I'd be okay with them having, the bullshit songs on here, but I didn't like that at all. I guess it showcased, because I know the gimmick was, there's a lot of like a satanic panic at the time, I guess, obviously the late 80s or so. So they were trying to showcase like that. I guess in this case, Beyond the Wheel would be 666 and would be an evil song of some sort. And the songs around it would be kind of just as evil, but the 666 song Beyond the Wheel would be the most evil, which isn't necessarily even like how the song kind of, goes at all. But so, yeah, and then there's at the end here, obviously 1 minute of silence closed it out, which is again, just garbage. But initially my review, Beyond the Wheel, loved that song. I also loved, I know Nazi Driver is also a big like song for fans. I like Nazi Driver. Okay. For my money, Smokestack Lightning and Incessant Mace, they just go so hard and it's just so nice. Like they tap into a little, and it gets a little more as we go on here, but they definitely like they put their influences out there, and you can hear the little bit here, because they're obviously all kids here at this point. I think Cornell is at this point 22 years old, and I think Kim Thale is right around that age too. 24. Okay, so they're still young kids, or I don't know, not kids, whatever. Regardless, I think they were tapping into a little Zeppelin-y, a little Sabbath-y, and that kind of went on here a little bit later, which I'm, me, I love my Sabbath and my doomy stuff. And so Ultra Mega OK, a pretty okay Ultra Mega OK. It's pretty okay debut record. I don't love it, to be honest with you. I don't love it at all. I did rank it, for me, I ranked it 4th. Or excuse me, lied to you. Ranked it 3rd. Ranked it 3rd. Yeah, ranked it 3rd. I moved it up. It was originally 4th. It was 4th. Ranked it 3rd. I guess this is controversial. I told you. I think I'm being a little controversial here, but I went 3rd on that one.
Very interesting.
Yeah.
Well, the only reason I'm saying wow is because you're like, I don't really like it, and you put it right. You put it in the top 3. So
we'll get there.
Interesting.
All right.
Yeah, Josh, give us kind of the same thing, your takes and where you put it.
Definitely going to echo a lot of what Tyler said. I agree with his songs he likes. Beyond the Wheel is a very Sabbathy song to me, so you can see where they get their influences. I can actually picture like Ozzy or Dio singing that song. Like it sounds very Sabbathy. I think it's interesting because it has a lot of different sounds like hard rock, punk, metal. So it's kind of a fun listen.
Yeah.
I'd say like Flower or Beyond the Wheel is my favorite songs from the album.
Okay.
And I put it at number 6.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Just not my favorite Soundgarden
Yeah.
album, but still a good listen.
I think it's a perfectly okay debut. I think it's really uneven. You have the covers like the smokestack lighting. You have that 1 minute of song with the John Lennon Yoko cover. Like, so it's literally useless. Like most of that John Lennon Yoko shit is. And it's kind of uneven. You kind of start figuring out who the really great song, nothing against the other guys, but Kim and Chris are the strength of this band. Nothing against Hero, nothing against Matt Cameron. I think Matt Cameron's a really good drummer. Like, he's been in the scene forever. He's Pearl Jam's drummer forever. And Soundgarden, Temple of the Dog. Like, dude's great. But I think Kim and Chris are the true songwriters of the band. This has a lot of different songwriters on this. So I think that shows. And they don't really have a vision yet for where they want to go. It's got a real 70s vibe, honestly. You got a lot of like 70s punk and Sabbath and Zeppelin all mixed in. And I think that kind of hurts it. I think if they would have just picked like one thing, I think that would have helped out. They're solid players on this, but my thing is like knowing what they would become, it hurts this album. If it was like the peak, then I'd probably rank it much higher, obviously. But I know what's going to come after this, and they get a lot better. So it's got some solid grooves, good riffs scattered throughout it. Flower is definitely my favorite song on it. I notated Mood for Trouble too. I think that's a pretty cool song. Nazi Driver is a cool song too. Yeah, I actually put a rating to this too to help me out of 10. So I gave it a 6 out of 10 and I put it at number 6. So I'm going to echo Josh with my statement there. So after this, it was a pretty quick turnaround because we get this. We get Louder Than Love. This is on A&M Records. So they signed to a major. This is the first grunge album on a major label. They weren't the first band signed to a major. That was Alice in Chains. But this came out before a facelift. So this is where I wanted to go earlier with this, before we get into our ranking and our thoughts on Louder Than Love. Everybody credits Nirvana for a lot of shit. And rightfully so. Like, Nevermind's like a culturally defining album. It truly is. But all three of the other bands did major shit way before Nirvana. Not way before, but before. Soundgarden, first major label album. Alice in Chains, first band to sign to a major. Alice in Chains had the EPs that went to, Jar of Flies went to number 1, and Sap was up there too. Pearl Jam 10, I think, was already a platinum record by the time Nevermind came out, or gold. Like, it's something like that. I remember Tyler and I were doing this like maybe six months ago or so, and 10 was already like selling really well before even Nevermind dropped. Now, all this stuff got a boost from Nevermind. I'm not gonna say that, but what's your guys' take on that? Do you think Nirvana is overrated in that scene? Because to me, they kind of are. Because I think all three of the other big four Seattle bands really were doing all that shit without them, and I think they would have been successful even without Nevermind.
It's hard to say that. So I get what you're saying, and I don't disagree with anything you're saying, because I know, without getting numbered, because we don't know the numbers, I think that's all factual, damn near factual, with the gold 10 or whatever, right? But you can't fault. They did it the best, the biggest, like at that point, and like I don't know, I should say best. It's subjective, but they did it the biggest out of all of them, and still to this day the biggest out of all of them. So you can't really hurt them that way. It's kind of like for example, I don't know, it's not a direct comparison, so I know, but before Sabbath, there's other metal out there, quote unquote, like pioneer metal bands or what have you, that people want to jock and say, well, this is, if you listen to this and listen to that, there are pillars of what would later become metal. But we still talk about, I get it, and I understand that the comparisons between Nirvana and Soundgarden and all these other bands are much more apt than what Black Sabbath is to Blue Cheer, for example, your favorite band. Is a lot of stuff there, right? But I don't know. I don't know if I'd call it overrated. I can't. I don't know. It's hard to argue about that because I can totally see your argument. I can absolutely see that and understand what you're saying.
Yeah, I'm not discrediting Nirvana and the impact of Nevermind, but I'm saying that had more of an impact later. That had more of an impact to, okay, now the labels are going to sign every band that sounds Seattle or even close to it. Whereas Soundgarden, Nirvana, Pearl Jam were already, or Soundgarden, Alice, Pearl Jam were already doing major things even before Nevermind even changed the game. I'm not saying that like this would have changed the game or Bad Motorfinger or even 10 as much as Nevermind. My point is like that it already started happening. And I think too much credit is given to Nirvana, and the other three bands are kind of, and partially I think that is because of the way Nirvana ended and Kurt and the mythos that is, if Nirvana still existed, I don't think Nirvana is nearly as big as they are in the mythos, but that's my take on it. I don't know if you want to keep riffing on it, or Josh, you got anything to add?
I mean, it's a very apt take because it's totally it's true, it's real. They didn't have it's just like anybody that dies in their, not just like from whatever, but when you die when you're young and you're forever, like literally forever 27, like you're forever that age. So you never aged in anybody's mind. Your thoughts, your opinions, your output, nothing you ever did changed. So we romanticize you to a level that is obviously unhealthy, and we put you on that pedestal like everything you ever did, everything that Kurt Cobain ever touched, every record was awesome. It was so sick and this and that and everything else, right? He didn't have a time to fall off. He went out on top. Even with In Utero being the weird record that it was, especially for people that wanted Nevermind 2 or whatever, and it wasn't that at all. Even with that being the case, especially today, and me included, obviously I wasn't there live, or I was alive, but I wasn't there in the moment. But like, I look back at In Utero much more fondly than I do Nevermind, because I think In Utero is a much ballsier record. And I think there's a lot of cooler shit on In Utero than what's on Nevermind personally. But I think that's just the way it is. It's just like, if any of these bands, if Eddie Vedder died after Versus, like it's the same deal. Like and like Nirvana went on, like, and it's not a fault. And it's not calling out Nirvana or Kurt. And I know this is about Soundgarden. We're just talking about, the whole bubble here. But like, it's not calling out any one band. It's just the way things work. It's just unfortunate. It's like Jimi Hendrix. It's like Hendrix. Hendrix also 27. But Hendrix is an amazing innovator, did all this stuff and everything else. But if he had a true 70s period into the 80s period where he started doing computer shit and started getting really weird, or started getting way more drugged up, or did whatever, you would look at Hendrix like, well, I mean, Hendrix did a lot of cool stuff, but then, all those 80s records that he put out were real weird, like, and sucked or whatever. Then it ruins his legacy. So like the legacy of the band lives on forever.
Counterpoint to that, though, and then Josh, you can give if you want to add anything to this, then we'll actually talk. Then we'll actually talk about the record. But counterpoint to that, though, is I think I would argue that Alice in Chains, Soundgarden, and Pearl Jam never ruined their legacy, and they two of the bands are still going, and they haven't. So, like, I don't know. You know what I'm saying? I guess you have a take, so we'll get to it. Well, Josh, you got anything to add?
Yeah, it's hard to. I agree with what you just said. Those two bands are still going. It's hard to really say who's the best, though, and who should get the most credit.
Yeah, I'm not saying Nirvana doesn't get credit. All I'm saying is Nirvana gets too much credit from people who don't know what they're talking about, because all three of those other bands did major things even before Nevermind dropped.
I agree.
That's all I'm saying.
Yeah.
It's just they get dwarfed. It's like, it's almost like, grant you, this is not an app comparison, but it's almost like if Metallica released Black Album first, which Nirvana, obviously, or Nevermind's not the first record, but it's the thing that smashed open the scene at that point, right?
Yes.
It's almost like if they did the Black Album first. Like, it's so big that it eclipses everything else that ever is even around in that bubble of music or that scene or whatever, right? It's just so big. It's hard to look past that because it is so big, but you have to, and you have to like, kind of get down to the nitty gritty and like really examine things. And that's kind of hard to do sometimes. And, and again, we're talking about, like you're talking about it didn't ruin legacy. I'm not going to say that's not going to be a take of mine later that Soundgarden ruined their legacy, just for spoiler. That's not a take that I have here. Yeah. But I don't know, man. It's pretty crazy. Also, bring up Alice in Chains. Didn't we basically just say Alice in Chains isn't necessarily like they're not totally grunge, they're like everywhere kind of sort of like
I agree. And I think Soundgarden's everywhere too. Yeah. And
true.
Honestly, I think Pearl Jam has changed so much since 10. Like,
oh yeah.
Their records are way different vibes than anything. So yeah, I mean, Nirvana, I think, is one of the bands that like kept that sound. But for better or for worse, those bands get lumped together. They all knew each other. They're all from the same city. They all played in bands together. Some of them still play in bands together. So like it is what it is. So yeah, let's talk about Louder Than Love. So released September 5th, 1989. So really quick turnaround, less than a year. Got signed to the major. They got back in. Terry Date on production. Tyler, give us your thoughts and your ranking.
Okay, so we're gonna get the next two records here, or this and the next record. But you bring up Terry Date. I think Terry Date did a lot of favors to them. I know that like they talk. We're gonna get into it later, but they also have thoughts later on with the production side of things. They think that certain producers were kind of wanting a sound that they do, and they want the band to fall into that sound. And
Ultra Mega OK was the big time, yeah.
Yeah, and I get that. But in my mind, and I'm going to say it again in the next record too with Terry Date, I think he did them a endless amount of favors here because I think I love. Grant you, my sample size of Terry Date records aren't that vast. It's the Soundgarden, it's Pantera. I think he did Deftones records too.
He did like all the Biscuit records. So
he did all. I thought Ross Robinson did Biscuit. No,
yeah, Terry Date. Or he might have mixed. Terry Date did mixing or engineering or producing on the Limp Bizkit records.
Okay,
he is crazy. I don't.
Maybe Ross did.
I don't. Production, engineering, or mixing. Yeah, he's on. He did Deftones. He did some Deftones. The good '90s Deftones shit. Yeah, he did Significant Other.
Ooh, okay.
For Biscuit. So I don't know what he's doing on that, but he was definitely involved. Chocolate Starfish.
Okay, so it's massive records.
So those albums too. So
yeah, his production style especially is crazy. It's massive.
Yeah,
especially those Biscuit records. A lot of those Biscuit, the break stuff production is ridiculous. Like it's one of the coolest parts of that band is on that song. That production just sounds so cool. But anyway, with Louder Than Love, I actually listened to that. I lied to you. I forgot that I lied to you about this. I listened to it out of order. I listened to Louder Than Love first because I was under the impression that was the first record. But on Spotify, they have Ultra Mega OK listed under the reissue of 2017. They don't have it listed under the original. So I just went straight there. And then once I was listening, I was like, wait, this isn't the first. I was in the middle of it. This isn't the first record. So then I went Ultra Mega out afterwards. So I enjoy Louder Than Love. Like I don't know. Massive Guitar. Like I know I just said I flipped it, so maybe I made another mistake. I don't know because now I'm reading my notes here. So massive guitars throughout the record, which I'm always a huge fan of. I love the massive guitars, as we talked about with the Alice in Chains and even the Van Halen, obviously. But the Alice in Chains, they started getting a little more sludgier on this guitar. And the bass, especially, as it gets more prominent later on, but it does start here to kind of they lean into a little bit more. They open with Ugly Truth, which are very, very Bonham-y drums on there, like very reminiscent of a classic John Bonham drums, which again, huge fan of. So we're still carrying over the Zeppelin vibes a little bit here, and Chris's vocal, obviously later on too a little bit, and I think Chris's vocal is super clean, especially again on Ugly Truth. Very, very clean, and but not as perfect as it would get later on. I think he tuned it in a lot more, with the coming records here. Big bass, and I think with the earlier records, it was mixed. It's mixed a little more prominently here than it was on the earlier record, and then it gets, I also have a take here because this is the last record with Hero, right?
Yes.
I think the Hero bass parts for my limited here, today and yesterday, whatever, but mostly today, take here. I think the Hero bass parts are up a little bit more than what what's his name?
Ben Shepherd.
There you go. Than what Ben's were. I think that's the kind of showcase here a little bit more, which I'm always a big fan of. And it starts the manic Cornell vocals, which get more prominent later on, and then Power Trip, very Sabbathy, and with the thick bass on there too. So for my money, I did put it fourth. But reading my review again, I could flip Ultra Mega and Louder Than Love. I could flip one of those at some point. But I will go with my ranking. I won't do it. I didn't do it with Van Halen. I didn't do it with 5150, which I did rank super low. I didn't do it. So at this point, I put Louder Than Love as fourth.
Okay. Gotcha. Did you mention any standouts? I'm sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry. So Power Trip. I love Power Trip. And then I liked Ugly Truth as well. And then Gun's a cool song. Hands All Over is obviously the single. And then let's see here. Big Dumb Sex. It's cool too. But yeah, so there you go.
Gotcha. Alrighty, Josh, what do you got?
All right, I'll definitely repeat a lot of what Tyler said. Chris's voice starts to shine here, but it's going to get even better as his career goes on with the different albums. Definitely like Ugly Truth. Gun's a cool, heavy song. Hands All Over is a great song. It was fun re-listening to this album again. I'd have to say Hands All Over and Loud Love are my favorites. Loud Love is actually like one of my all-time favorite Soundgarden songs, I'd have to say. Nice. Probably like top 5 easily, maybe even top 3.
It's cool.
I put it at number 4.
Very cool. I'm going to agree with Tyler. I think Terry Date's really good. I mean, I love those Pantera sounds. And I think a lot of his records sound like that. He's got a style, and I think he shines with Soundgarden too. This and the next record we'll talk about. I think it's a really solid sophomore album. It builds upon the debut, like it does what a sophomore album should do. They don't subtract. They kind of narrow it in a little bit. Like they're finding their sound. Definitely, it's good riffing. Kim's really good grooves on it. Like Tyler said, the bass is pretty good in the mix. Chris sounds much better in the mix than the debut. It's almost like Terry Date realized Chris is kind of the star of the band. I mean, Kim's great too, but I think they realized that they got something special on their hands here, so they started showcasing him more. Like Tyler said, it's the last album with Hero on bass, and it's the first grunge album on a major label. Like I said, so I think it deserves credit for that too. Hands All Over, I really like. Loud Love, really good. Big Dumb Sex is fun too. It's just a song making fun of late 80s glam bands. The song is not meant to be taken seriously at all, but I think it's a fun, a good rocking song. I gave it a 7.5 out of 10. So a little step up from the debut, and I ranked it at number 4 as well. So I think we were all on the same page there.
Yep.
Gotcha. Correction. So Ben Shepherd didn't come in immediately. They actually got Jason Everman, who played bass in Nirvana before Chris. And then Jason Everman, interesting dude. He's actually an Army Ranger, former Army Ranger, and a Green Beret, because he was actually on Rogan's. And
yes.
Cool.
I saw it. I didn't watch it. I saw that. Yes.
Talk a little bit about bands and stuff, but mostly talk about him being Army Rangering stuff. But interesting guy with an interesting story. Yeah, Hero left the band because he wanted to go back to college.
Good call.
And it's funny. There's a Cornell quote. He's like, "It's pretty weird because we're actually like, we're starting to do shit. So it's fine. It's a weird time to want to leave, but good on you. Whatever. Do what you got to do." After they got back from tour on this record, that's when Andy Wood died, and Andy Wood was Cornell's roommate. So obviously that would have a big impact on what they would do next, which would be Temple of the Dog. So, but as far as Soundgarden goes, I got to give my take. I did give my take. Sorry. I did. I ranked it 4. As far as Soundgarden goes, they released this album. Josh put up Loud and Love. Dude, do me a solid.
There
we go. Bad Motor Finger, October 8th, 91. So they took a little bit of time off there. Got 2 years instead of a year. Still on A&M. And yeah, this record is a ginormous album. A lot of big singles. I think it's like 2 or 3 times platinum now. They got they were opening on the Guns Use Your Illusion tour. So they got on some big tours. They opened for Skid Row on a Slave of the Grind tour. So they're really getting exposed to a lot of different audiences there.
Was that the Metallica Guns tour or just Guns?
I think it's just Guns because I think Faith No More opened the Metallica shows.
Okay.
They might have split it or something though.
Yeah,
I could be wrong.
Okay. Keep on.
But so yeah, they were definitely making it. They played Lollapalooza in 92. So they're getting exposed to alternative fans and the more hard rock fans at the Guns and Skid Row stuff. So things are starting to happen here. And this record is great. I'm not going to bury the lead here for me, but let's go with Tyler's take on Bad Motor Finger. I suggest you tread lightly on this one. That's all I got to say.
Good idea.
All right. So, all right. This is where we're getting fights. All right. I'm just kidding. That's not true. All right. So, Bad Motorfinger obviously has I wouldn't say vast majority. It's not true. A good number of Soundgarden songs on here. Like the songs that your mother and your sister know come from this record prominently, right? So Rusty Cage, Outshined, Jesus Christ Pose. Those are the big singles on there, right? So for my money, I think it's a little bit top heavy, but not by much. I don't think that it's like it's not drastic, okay? Because on the tail end here, I absolutely fell in love with Room 1,000 Years Wide. I never heard that song before. So that, and then Mind Riot, also another cool track. Drawing Flies is fine at the end there. And then the New Damage to close it, still cool. So I'm not saying that it's vastly top heavy, but it's a little bit, because obviously it's hard to compete with such massive songs like the singles to lead off the record here. Slaves and Bulldozers, also another cool song. I don't know if I've heard that song prior, but it has a Wikipedia link on here, so it obviously is a big deal for Soundgarden fans, even as a non-single. So I really enjoyed listening to Bad Motorfinger entirely. The heavy riffs in Holy Water, Chris's vocals also, again, they're just getting better and better and cleaner with the wailing and everything else. Like he's really like again, Terry Date is tuning in his vocal. Like he's really getting him to where he needs to be on these records, which makes me angry coming later on. But regardless, it's a constant kick in the teeth throughout the record. And Room 1,000 Mile Wide just grooves and it just goes forever, and super into that. So for my money here, to wrap all that up, Bad Motorfinger is at number 1 for me.
Nice.
All right, Josh,
go for it.
All right, I honestly agree with a lot of what Tyler just said. I love this album. I love Jesus Christ Pose. I kind of like the intro, the dueling guitars. Definitely,
yeah.
Like I recommend watching some live tracks of Slaves and Bulldozers. That's
I didn't do that. You told me to watch a certain. I didn't watch. I watched the Den already, but I didn't seek out anything more than that.
Slaves and Bulldozers is probably my favorite song from the album. Jesus Christ Pose, obviously. Outshined has some iconic lyrics that people recognize. That being said, I put it at number 2.
Okay. Gotcha. It's a stellar album, man. It's more consistent, really focused approach. They're becoming Soundgarden here. Really cool little side note. This album came a month and a half after 10, just a couple weeks after Nevermind and Blood Sugar. So like if you're like any type of alternative music fan, man, in the early 90s, like you're in heaven.
Also, I think Use Your Illusion's right in that bubble too. And then also Black Album would be maybe Black Album would be a little bit later in the year, early in the year, but like 100%.
Yeah.
Sure.
Just insane amount of records there. That'd be a fun year to do, like 91. Be interesting.
Year.
Yeah, true. So definitely more focused approach. I think the Soundgarden sound is beginning to take shape. Terry Date, another stellar production job. Really tight playing. Kim's really good. Great guitars, like Josh said on Jesus Christ Pose. Good grooving. This is Ben Shepherd's first album, so Jason Everman wasn't on a record, but they bring in Ben Shepherd. I think he's solid on this. It's an absolute classic for me. Like for me, if you're going to listen to one Soundgarden record, this is the record. It's a must listen to album of the 90s. Like it's quintessential 90s. That's a topic I eventually want to do. And this album would be on there for me. And I give it a 9 out of 10. I don't think it's a perfect album. Very hard to get a perfect score for me, but I give it number one. It's my number one favorite Soundgarden record. I think it's like perfect. It's the perfect length. Doesn't overstay its welcome. It's tight. It's got great songs, man. I mean, the vocal on Slaves and Bulldozers, it builds and builds and builds, and then Chris is just soaring over the track. It's amazing. Obviously, Rusty Cage and Outshined are like really my first kind of Soundgarden songs because Rusty Cage is in Road Rash. So like I think Outshined is too, isn't it, Josh?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So like that's kind of my first exposure to the band. So those songs, I've listened to the songs 1,000 times. Still love listening to them. Room 1,000 Years Wide is a great song. A great song. So I'll echo Tyler there. So yeah, my number one is Bad Motorfinger. So I'll agree with Tyler
also,
there.
Isn't Rusty Cage in San Andreas?
Yes. Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
So that would probably be the first time I ever listened to that song every day, 25,000 times. Really, is playing.
Gotcha.
San Andreas.
Gotcha. So we had a little bit of a break, and the band would take some time off, do some touring. Usually, what happens when you get a mega successful album like that, you got to tour on it. You got to make money. That's the best way to do it, especially back then. So they had a little bit of a break. So we get a little bit more time in between records. So we get March 8th, 1994, still on A&M Records. They would change producers, no longer Terry Date. They would kind of get tired of Terry Date and go in a different direction because of the recording process during Bad Motorfinger. And they just wanted to change it up too. And we get Super Unknown, another absolutely classic album that people love. This is the Gatefold 2 LP.
Oh yeah.
Pretty cool artwork and stuff. And you got a nice big book in here. And it's a classic album. March 8th, 94. So Tyler, give us your thoughts on Super Unknown.
All right. So Super Unknown for me, let me just click through just to make sure they got it here. Okay. So I like Super Unknown quite a bit. For my money, I think it is a little fat. 70 minutes long.
It's a long
record. I think that's the longest record they have. Without, because I did look. The debut and the last record, the shortest records they ever did. Everything else was super long. Some justified, some not. So for my money, I think Super Unknown's a little fat. I think it could have cut a little bit here. It also is loaded with singles, obviously. Spoon Man, Day I Tried to Live, Black Hole Sun, My Wave, and Fell in Black Days. I had not listened to this record entirely up until this moment. Let Me Drown kicks it off. I like Let Me Drown a lot. I didn't understand the story initially, and I read more into it. It's about somebody, or it's about Chris, whatever, about the song is about somebody wanting to kill themselves by crawling back into their mother's womb and dying. Or I guess maybe not killing themselves, but, dying in their mother's womb. That's a really insane, like, just, a thing to write about, really. And that's the thing. Everybody writes about death. No one writes about just, drowning yourself in your mother's womb and recreating the birth. My Wave, also another really cool song, really groovy song. I like My Wave. Fell on Black Days, again, another huge song. Mailman, I like Mailman too. There's the nice sludgy riff throughout, which I'm very into. Again, we kind of get a little Sabbathy with a lot of this stuff, some notes here and there, and that kind of just maintains throughout the career for a lot of it. And it's hard to like. It's hard not to put a record that has Black Hole Sun not at number one, right? Because that song is just so big. And even though I've heard it a million times, I still really dig that song. Even as a non-huge, sycophant Soundgarden fan, I still really enjoy Black Hole Sun. And I know it's been played a million trillion times. Day I Tried to Live, also, obviously, again, another cool song. I Don't Care About Kickstand. I don't like that song.
Ooh.
I don't care. Really? Is that
Wow.
Is that controversial with this? Okay. All right. So maybe that's a little okay. I don't care about Kickstand necessarily. My favorite song on here is 4th of July. That's my absolute standout song for me. I had heard a cover previously before I ever heard their version. I heard a cover of it, and then I went back and listened to this. And for my money, I think that's probably my favorite song on here. And I think Spoon Man might be played out for me. Listening back to this, Spoon Man might be played out for me. Might be too much. But for my money, my final ranking, final word on Super Unknown is number 2.
Gotcha.
Josh, what you got?
All right, I don't disagree with Tyler entirely. You made some great points there. But this is definitely a very nostalgic album for me. Like 94 was such a great year. You had bands like 9 Inch Nails, Green Day, freaking Pearl Jam, just putting out great albums, and this was one of them. This is definitely my favorite album. I love Mailman. Limo Wreck is definitely a cool song. 4th of July is actually like my all-time favorite Soundgarden song if I had to choose one.
Nice.
I'd probably put that at number 1. I agree with Tyler. It's definitely the best song on the album. Not really any tracks I dislike on this album, so I'd say it's my favorite front to back. So I'll say Mailman, Limo Wreck, and 4th of July are my favorite songs, and I put it at number 1.
Oh, gotcha. Yeah, I mean, this is their biggest album. It's 6 times platinum now. Wow. So as of what was it, like 2017, I think. So it's probably even more than that, maybe now. It's constantly ranked in there in the big list, like essential 90s albums, essential grunge albums, hard rock, metal albums, whatever you want to call it. I thought this was going to be Tyler's favorite album. The reason being because this is their most Zeppelin-esque album.
I would definitely echo that 100%.
Yeah, it's very Zeppelin-y, 70s, like even like some psychedelic stuff in there. I would recommend guys who got stuck in the 80s and hate all these 90s bands who killed your scene to seek out some of these Soundgarden records because they appreciated all this shit. Like they're very proggy too. Like this record and the next record we're going to talk about are very proggy records. They would always use odd time signatures and change things up and different tunings. Like they sound kind of nothing like what's going on at the time. And then you have Chris just being an amazing singer over the top of that. Just like Bad Motorfinger, it's quintessential 90s. It's a must listen to album. Like I said, it's their most famous album, tons of singles, critical acclaim, massive sales. It's a different production approach and a more raw sound compared to Terry Date. I like it less because of that. I usually like raw stuff, but sometimes the guitars on this I would be grating. Like I would have to turn it down on re-listens.
Yeah.
When I'm really paying attention to it, like when I was re-listening to it this last few days, I like it less, but I don't mind that the band changed it up. Like they didn't want to get complacent with it. So I respect them for that. They branched out more, way more experimentation. They still have their influence, but they brought in that Soundgarden sound. It's a great mix. I noted blues, metal, 70s hard rock, psych, prog, a lot of stuff in between. I gave it a 9 out of 10. So same as Bad Motorfinger, but I put it at number 2. Only reason I put it at number 2 because I think Bad Motorfinger is the tighter album. Like I think there is, like Tyler said, a little bit of bloat here, and it's funny because reading interviews with Chris, he's like, we didn't want to argue about what to cut, and I'm like, like someone just to sit down and make the nitty gritty cuts, So I honestly wish this record would have came out in like the late 70s, early 80s before CDs because they would have been forced to cut shit most likely, without putting it on a 2 LP. And I think it would be better for that. But Fell on Black Days is an amazing song. I like My Wave. Black Hole Sun, I'm not tired of. Spoon Man, I Chronic Area Tyler. It's a little played out. It's still an interesting song, though. Yeah. So Limo Wreck, great vocal on that. The Day I Tried to Live, iconic. Like a Suicide, really kick-ass solo from Kim on that song. So, yeah, like I said, 9 out of 10 for me and number 2 on the list. So the band is just getting bigger and bigger at this point. They're putting out massive records, getting massive MTV exposure. So usually when that happens, you get something a little different by most bands who have an artistic side to them. So we got this May 21st, 1996, Down on the Upside. Still on A&M Records, so still on the major. They're selling, doing big tours. This one would sell 200,000 copies in its opening week. Had many different singles. Topped the charts in New Zealand and Australia. Debuted at number 2. Debuted at number 2 in the States. And this would be their last album for a number of years. This kind of break up the band. They would break up basically in the middle of the tour. They didn't want to do the 96 Lollapalooza tour, and then Metallica got on the tour, and then Metallica asked them to do it, and they were like, okay, now this is like a Metallica tour, so we'll do it. So they did the 96 Lollapalooza, then they did a headlining tour after that, and at the end of that tour, they broke up and disbanded. The band just wasn't fun for them to tour anymore, wasn't fun for them to be around each other anymore, so it had ran its course. So kind of like the other grunge bands outside of Pearl Jam, big grunge bands, they're kind of like a shooting star. They go shoot up and then fade away, and then now we've got bands coming back. But so yeah,
like a 7-year itch.
Yeah, I guess you kind of got a point there. Tyler, Down on the Upside, what's your take on it? I'm supposed this is your controversial take, so.
I don't know. I don't know anymore. Maybe. So Down on the Upside for me is just radio rock. It's very safe. They reined it in too much.
Wow.
They relaxed on the heavy. They didn't do as heavy and as loud as they were previously. I know the big clash was because Kim wanted to keep doing his guitar work, which is phenomenal, which we just talked about, and they wanted to rein in the guitar. And I think there's only 2 real guitar like Kim songs on this record, and like I can't understand that. I can't understand because he does such cool soloing, such cool writing. I don't know why you'd want to stifle that, but I guess Chris just thought it was too much, so they compromised, I guess, a bit, and they just relaxed it quite, a lot, which I don't understand. They self-produced it, which we just talked about. I think Terry Date could have done a lot here. I think he could have focused it a little bit more. I think he could have. I mean, I don't know the interpersonal relationships between all the guys and the producers or whatever, right? But maybe he could have like better compromised what actually ended up coming out here. I wish there was more guitar. I wish it was louder. I wish it was more aggressive. But that's not what Chris did into the time. So it is what it is, right? Whatever. I think for my money, like when I listen to this again, this is literally the first time I ever listened to this record. Most of these songs on here too. Pretty new. I liked it. It's fine. Like I said, a lot of it is just for me standard alt rock, late 90s rock, which I'm not saying that in a bad way. It's just I think I don't see an easy transition here between records. I didn't see this coming with which we just talked about. They took a left turn because they wanted to go differently. I didn't see the transition here. I didn't see them going softer. I shouldn't say softer, but not as loud, not as aggressive. I didn't see that happening. but it's a lot of bloat for me as well. It's almost 70 minutes again, 65 minutes, a little bit of bloat, a little fat we could have cut out here. Bird in My Hand, that's a great song. That was my favorite song off the record. But I would have cut some of this out of here personally. And for that reasoning, I placed this 6th on my ranking.
Wow. All right.
Yeah.
That hurts.
It is pretty controversial.
That hurts.
Gosh, what you got?
You caught me deep. All right. So I definitely love this album. I think I kind of sort of agree with Tyler saying about Radio Rock, but I think these songs are a little bit underrated in my opinion. It does sound different, but that being said, I think it's a little bit underrated. It should be appreciated a little bit more. Okay. Blow Up the Outside World is one of my favorite Soundgarden songs. I'll probably put that in the top 5. Also a very nostalgic album for me. Just backyard baseball, I hear these songs. And I remember watching Saturday Night Live with mom and dad and seeing Soundgarden perform the songs from this album on there too.
Yeah.
I think they did Pretty Noose and Blow Up the Outside World.
Yeah.
Nice. It has some underrated songs on there, like Tighter and Tighter is a great song.
I like that one too.
Yeah. So I'd say Pretty Noose, Blow Up the Outside World, my favorites, and I'd put it at number 3.
Gotcha. Yeah, I think this is it's a massive thing to follow up your biggest record. And I think a lot of bands are going to do one thing. You're either going to try to make the sequel or you're going to go like in the opposite direction. Metallica, opposite direction. For the most part. Nirvana, we just talked about, opposite direction. Pearl Jam, even kind of opposite direction. Alice in Chains, way different direction. So I think any of these bands that are really interested in the art and not just selling records are going to do that. So I understand Tyler's point. Like, it is a softer record. They took a lot of the edge out from Super Unknown. And Kim only has one songwriting credit on this album, and you can tell. Yeah. I think they pull it off pretty nicely, though. It's definitely more experimental. I think it's better produced than Super Unknown. I think Tyler's right. I think Terry Date would have added to it, but I think Super Unknown is a pretty grating album when you listen to it. I was listening to the high res files, and like I said, I was having to turn it down. And usually I like things pretty loud. And I do think it suffers from a little bit of bloat that kind of Super Unknown does, but I think Super Unknown pulls it off better. Yeah. They were trying the same approach here with more is better, but it just less successfully. There's great ideas, but it's kind of scattered throughout in different parts of different songs. It does have 3 of my favorite Soundgarden songs, though. Blow Up the Outside World, Burden in My Hand, and Pretty Noose. I think Pretty Noose is a great opening track. Okay. Really cool song. So that does help this album quite a bit. I honestly was doing the ranking, and when we started this, I'm like, this Down on the Upside is going to be number 1. It's going to be my number 1. I put it at 8 out of 10. I think it's a good, solid B. It's not nearly what Super Unknown or Bad Motorfinger are, and I ranked it at number 3. So just like Josh, right. Pretty much in simpatico here. So Pretty Noose. Ty Cobb is a really cool song. That's a heavier song on the album. Blow Up the Outside World. Great Chris vocal on that. Burden in My Hand. Boot Camp's a really cool song, too, if you want a deep cut. And Tighter and Tighter, like Josh said. So the band broke up, like we said. They basically did the band in. They were down and out. Matt Cameron did Pearl Jam. The other guys did other. I don't even know what Kim did. And then Chris would obviously do Audioslave with the Rage guys. Be interesting to put Audioslave in there and rank it against the Soundgarden stuff. Really, really interesting.
That would be interesting.
That would have added more time onto this, but it would have been interesting. And we met many years. They would drop. They were. I don't remember this, Josh. I remember there being like hints of a reunion, and then they did that song for the greatest hits. But I don't remember it as clearly as like the Alice in Chains reunion.
No, not at all.
You don't either?
I remember that song coming out, but I don't remember that being like a thing that they're going to get back together.
Okay. And then they really, as far as I know, they only did like select dates and festivals and stuff.
Exactly.
They really didn't do like a massive touring. And but anyways, they dropped in 2012, and it was specifically November 13th, 2012. They dropped King Animal. So Josh, one of the two I don't own. I still need to get the vinyl. I don't know because it's still floating, and like I imagine eventually that'll be expensive just because it's one of those weird ones. So yeah, November 13th, 2012. This is the first album not on A&M. They did the Telephantasm to satisfy A&M's contract. They dropped that, and then they recorded this record kind of like Alice in Chains, and then they just, all right, who wants it, basically. So they had that luxury, which is nice. So yeah, Tyler, give us your thoughts on King Animal.
All right. So I vaguely remember this. Like I just remember the cover, and I remember like we were going to the stores at that point, so like we were involved or whatever, right? So I vaguely remember the record coming out. I obviously had nothing really to know like fondness. It's like or overly fondness to go listen to it or anything. So this is my first 100% listen to it. For my money, okay, so at 52 minutes, so they did cut it down a little bit from the prior records, which is probably a good thing, but I'm still going to echo a little bit. I think it's a little fat on here, even still. I don't dislike the record entirely. I think Been Away is a really cool classic vintage Soundgarden song. It's a rougher take. It's a rougher Cornell vocal take than what obviously is Older Man, whatever, right? And I don't think it's bad. So I watched also, I didn't mention this before, but I also watched Soundgarden live at Rock am Ring or London Calling, one of the two, and I think in 2012, so immediately afterwards. And Chris's vocal is a little rougher, but it's not bad. It's not in a bad way. He's just an older guy. He's not 24 anymore, you know? So, but I think they make it work really, really well. And on the record, even in the studio, still like it's a little rougher, but it still works, you know, really, really well. I think when they get down to Eyelid's Mouth, that production, and I think his vocal is much better. It sounds perfect on that song. So it's just, you know, kind of, you know, comes. I think they might do it too, just the way he wants it to sound within the songs. Obviously, it's not what he has to sound like. He wants to sound like that's what he thinks works for the songs. And then I thought that Rowing's lyrics, I think those they're a little sing-songy. They are, but I think that's the last track on the record. I think those are my favorite record, or my favorite lyrics on the entire record. I just the way that it kind of goes and goes and goes, it just flows so nicely. I like that a lot. So overall, not bad. I know Terry. It's the middle of the record. It's track 7. That was a Ben Shepherd song, I guess, that they reworked to put it into the record. I enjoy that song too. I like it. I like this record more than I like Down on the Upside. So for that reason, put it at 5.
Gotcha. Josh, what's your takes on it?
Okay. Tyler's back on track. I could pretty much echo what he said there. Terry, however you pronounce it, it's definitely a cool song. Well, I should start by saying it. The sad part is it took 15 years for this album, like 15 or 16 years or whatever for this album to come out. So that part kind of sucks for me. You didn't have albums in between. Yeah, By Crooked Steps is a cool song.
Yeah.
What else I got? Been Away for Too Long is a great song. Halfway There. Halfway There is probably my favorite from the album.
Gotcha.
So I also gave it 5.
You put it at number 5?
Number 5, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so this is the first time I've listened to this album doing this ranking. I don't know why. It just came out and I'm like, I gotta listen to that. And then they didn't ever come here. So I think that's why I didn't like want to dive in. And then it just kind of came and went for me. I remember hearing Been Away for Too Long, and By Crooked Steps. Those got played during one of the playoffs, like the 2012 playoffs, a ton. Or
interesting.
Like or something. It was on sports a lot, or like NFL or something. So I do enjoy this record. I really do. It seems to pick up right where they left off in 97. I'm surprised that Tyler likes this more than Down on the Upside, because Down on the Upside has better singles and they're very similar albums. So like,
wouldn't disagree. I understand. Yeah, you're right.
But they're updated. It's updated. It's got a modern production. It's updated for a modern audience. It's really clean production, big and bright. It sounds fine. Like the production, there's nothing really to complain about. Nothing like stands out. Chris still sounds really great. He's up front in the mix where he should be. It sounds like the record had a reason to happen. It's not like they just reunited and like, oh, we got to put out a record. Like it sounds like they got some fuel in the fire, and the dude still had chemistry. It's a pretty easy listen. I think it's a little bit bloated. I give it a 7.5 out of 10, and I put it at number 5 as well. So we were all on the same page. Been Away for Too Long. It's probably my favorite song. By Crooked Steps is really good. If you want a deep cut, Bones of Birds, I really like that one. On like the couple times I listened to it. That was one of the tracks I re-listened to a few times. So yeah. That's it, guys. That's the Alice in Chains. That's the Soundgarden ranking. That was good. We're all kind of very similar. I think Tyler was the only outside with Down on the Upside. And you put Ultra Mega OK higher and Down on the Upside lower. I think that's the only one we were all kind of, you were off the page with me and Josh. I think me and Josh had almost the same ranking other than Bad Motorfinger and Super Unknown.
Exactly, yeah.
So very cool. And then unfortunately the band would do their thing, and then Chris would pass in 2017. So I'm pretty sure I remember being at work when he passed, because I think the radio just started playing Soundgarden songs.
Yeah,
because I think I was working at Bridgewater's. I was working at the forklift place, and KUPD would always be on in there at the local rock station. And I think they just started playing Soundgarden songs like a ton. And I'm like, what happened? It's like, why are they just playing Soundgarden? And then I think I remember like texting Josh, talking to Josh, and that's, do you remember that, Josh?
Yeah. We're actually doing a job in California, and I wasn't listening to the radio, but the ex texted me, and she's like, I'm sorry about Chris. I'm like, what the hell are you talking about? Then I found out. I'm like, holy crap. And I'm with you on the radio thing, because I remember they did the same thing for Chester. Like, they play like 10 Linkin Park songs in a row, and you're like, what? He's like, what's going on? Then
I vividly remember.
Yeah. And Chester remember. Yeah. We're actually coming up on Chester. It's like Chester was in July, so it was a couple months later.
Yeah. I vividly remember that too, because they did the same thing, and I was working in the same place.
Mm-hmm.
And it was the same thing. I was like, oh, something happened.
Yeah.
So yeah, I was bummed out, because like you said, we never got a chance to see Soundgarden or Chris. You saw Audioslave.
Yeah. Lucky enough to see Audioslave.
Do you remember anything from that? You saw them on Lollapalooza, right?
Yeah, it was they only had the first album out, so they basically did all those songs and then some covers. They did Seven Nation Army, the White Stripes song. But it was a really good set. It was a fun show.
Yeah, so you saw them on the first album.
Yes.
That's the best time to see them.
Yeah.
That's the best
they basically did the whole album.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
That's really cool. Tyler, you have any thoughts on that? Like on Chris's passing? Do you remember it at all?
So I remember, because I was working at home still, or I still do work at home, but I went home, and I think that was a TMZ thing. I just randomly, like, maybe it was on like Facebook or something, I don't know, whatever. And I was like, wait, what? Because obviously it's a very horrible, tragic, ending there. And so then I jumped on and I saw that, and I didn't. It's crazy. It's a terrible, crazy thing that happened, and I did a couple years, so it was just nuts. And obviously I did not have the same connection as you guys with the music and the band or whatever, but it's still like, I don't want to hear anybody. I don't want that to happen to anybody. I don't want anybody to do that stuff. Right. Yeah. And he still was a massive legend in the scene, and I still appreciated everything he did and his vocal and everything else. Right. But something, I don't know, we talked about this before, and I don't know if I'd recommend it or not, but I've watched that final show in Milwaukee, I think it was. It's brutal, man. Like, not in a bad way, but you could tell, like, there was something bad going on there, and like, obviously no one could tell what it meant. No one could tell really, right? But you could, like, there was something that was going on there, because he shredded his voice every song, especially the last like 5 or 6 tracks. He was going 300%, and it was nutso. But yeah, so I don't know. It's tragic. It's horrible. I wish it didn't happen. And he was in a bad way. And unfortunately, that's the way a lot of the guys from that scene kind of went out.
Yeah, I mean, 3 of the OG lead singers are gone. Eddie's the only one standing, and Eddie could have easily went the same way because Eddie was heavy into his drinking and
Still
not
is
healthy too. So, is he?
Oh yeah, he still drinks every night.
Really? Wow.
Still drinks and smokes every night. Yeah.
Wow. So who knows? So yeah, knock on wood, obviously, hopefully lives to be an old man. But so yeah, that's kind of a weird dichotomy there. Those guys lived hard and fast life, and you thought Chris, being an older dude who made it, you never know. You never know with people. And I think mental health in the country, and I think men's health specifically is looked down, especially when you're in that position. Like you're looked up to by all those people. And I remember when it happened, like it was like rumored accidental overdose, and it was accident and stuff. And then I've since been ruled a suicide. Side note, I know everything is completely worked out with Soundgarden and Chris's widow. So
that's very
apparently apparently we're getting a new Soundgarden album with the leftover stuff. So I don't know if they're gonna do new music and put Chris's leftover vocal tracks over it, or just mix, or they had enough done where they're just gonna finally put it together. Who knows? I'm gonna look forward to it. I will check it out. I'm always down for that.
Definitely.
So yeah, this is fun, guys. If you enjoy this type of stuff, you enjoy album rankings, vinyl hauls, unboxings, reviews, all that type of stuff, hit the like button, subscribe, comment down below. Love to hear your thoughts on Soundgarden or Chris or the grunge bands. Really quick, Josh, big 4 grunge bands, rank them. Give me your 4.
Oh, okay. Soundgarden. Now, Alice in Chains, number 1.
Okay.
Soundgarden, number 2.
Yeah.
Pearl Jam 3 and Nirvana 4.
Correct. I would do the exact same thing. So
that was hard though.
Tyler, go ahead.
All right. So Nirvana number 1, still doing it. I do PJ number 2. I do Alice in Chains number 3, and then I do Soundgarden number 4. I think.
Wow, I think Alice would have moved up there for you after the ranking, because I know you like pretty much everything you listen to.
I do, but I'm going to echo a little bit we just talked about before. Nirvana is placed and romanticized in my brain so much, so it's hard.
I'm not saying number 1. I just think they'd be ahead of Pearl Jam. But
no, I know. I just like, I don't know. I've sat with Pearl Jam. Like, again, I'm not a deep cut Pearl Jam guy, but I've sat with those Pearl Jam songs for so many years. It's hard to like. It's hard to totally take them off the board, or not take them off the board, but like, move them around a little bit. It's kind of hard to do that.
Gotcha. Well, I would do the same ranking as Josh. Really quick too, Josh, bin or spin. You got to get rid of one forever, and you just ranked them. So I think you'd pick one or the other. Alice in Chains or Soundgarden. You do not get to listen to one ever again.
Can't do it.
No, you got to do it. You got to bin.
You got to do it. Yeah. You got to rationalize.
You wanted to play bin or spin. You asked for it. So these are the rules.
Alice in Chains, I guess.
What? Wait.
You would spin, Alice?
Sorry, I'm getting rid of Alice in Chains. Yeah, I'm spinning Chris Cornell and Soundgarden.
What?
Wow. Isn't Alice in Chains your favorite band? Did we just do this?
They are, but I'm looking at.
Jesus.
All right, I'm looking at it this way. Like, I think Chris is more influential, and I'd rather listen to the Soundgarden albums.
All right,
it's tough. It's tough.
Okay. All right.
Something I did miss with this ranking. I know we got to wrap it up, but something I did miss with this ranking is I realized how much I really enjoy the drug addict songs. Because with Chris's lyrics, the way he writes is not many are as direct as Lane and Jerry wrote for those records, right? But like there's a lot of absence of like direct drug reference in the Soundgarden discography, And I like that. I guess I like that more. So like I still would pick a lot of Alice in Chains records and songs over Soundgarden songs because they're just so much darker and so much more horrible, really, and tortured, if you will. So I don't know. That's something I observed when I did the listen here.
Gotcha. This is the fun one, guys. Tyler, put you on the spot here. It's your choice for topic. We always choose the topic at the end of every episode for next week. So what do you want to do next week on the podcast?
So I'm gonna take your advice here because I was gonna go somewhere else with it, but I'll pocket that idea. 10 essential 90s.
10 essential 90s records. Okay.
10 essential. We could do 5 if you really wanted to make it harder. Do 5 essential 90s.
Let's do 5.
Okay, 5 essential 90s. If you're okay, this is what it is. So you have a daughter. You already have a daughter. Okay, you have a child. Yeah. I do not. But if I had a child, these are 5 records to give to your daughter. Ooh. This is what the 90s
time capsule.
Are. Exactly. Okay. The starter pack, or like this is what it is. These are what you're going to like get, just the blueprint outline, the most important things to get you an idea as to what the 90s are about.
That's rough, man, because there's so many good albums in that decade, obviously, and there's a 90s style. Like you have all the grunge and alternative stuff, but then you have all the metal stuff too that like is kind of timeless in a lot of ways. So
making it 5 is super rough right now.
I'm gonna do Def Leppard Slang, Motley Crue's self-titled. No, just kidding.
No, but Generation Swine too, though. So it's hard. Which one are you gonna pick? Like if you got to really
one
Robbie record.
Let's do one per band too. Can't do same albums for the band. So one per band. Sure. Make it even harder. So 5 quintessential essential 90s records and then one per band. Anyways, guys, let's get out of here. We're wrapping in under 90 minutes. Let's keep it like that. We'll see you next time, guys. Peace.